The average student loan debt is about $38,000. Is it worth it? Not too long ago, college was seen as the bridge to a great career and a high-paying salary. Now with the rise of the internet and with people making six figures and upwards to millions of dollars by utilizing social media like YouTube and Instagram, a lot of people are questioning whether college is actually worth it. College is becoming like a four-letter word, and student loans are even worse. They're seen as the ultimate sin. But realistically, there are tons of careers out there that require a college degree, and student loans make college accessible to a lot of people. I'm going to help you evaluate whether student loans are actually a good decision and if it's worth it for your career. Hi, I'm Shayna of The Wealth Vibe, and I create videos to help you eliminate debt, grow your income, and build wealth. Aside from mortgage debt, student loan debt is the highest debt that Americans have cumulatively, coming in at about $1.4 trillion. And the average student loan debt payment is about $300 a month. So it's not something to take lightly like I did. I have about $56,000 of student loan debt that I took out to cover my graduate degree education. And I learned from a lot of my mistakes, and so I'm here to help you make a logical decision when it comes to deciding whether to take on student loan debt. Since the average American has taken out student loan debt, you probably had or currently have student loans. And I want you to join the conversation by dropping down in the comment section below and letting me know by writing yes or no to if you feel like your student loans gave you a financial upper hand. So drop down in the comment section and let me know what you think about this. Did your student loans give you a financial upper hand by writing yes or no? Now I'm going to get straight into the video and help you decide whether student loans are worth it for you and provide you some things to think about to help you make that decision. As I mentioned, colleges are getting a bad rap and student loans are seen to be terrible. And inherently, I don't think that student loans are any worse than any other debt that Americans have. And actually, when you think about the other debts that Americans have, like the auto loans, Americans have trillions of dollars worth of auto loans as well. But you don't hear auto loans getting as bad of a rap as college and student loan debts are getting nowadays. And realistically, at the end of the day, debts are debts and loans are loans. But we all have to make decisions about whether we actually want to go into debt for certain things. And you have to really think about a few different factors to determine whether or not going into debt, whether it's for a car or for your education, actually makes sense. And don't get wrapped up in the narratives that are spewed out there today about colleges not being worth it. Because realistically, is your car actually worth it when it's really a depreciating asset and someone can take it away from you tomorrow, especially when you have a loan on it? I don't know. I'm going to help you decide whether this is a step that you need to take financially, whether student loan debt is worth it, and if it can even be seen as worth it for you. I would hope before you decide to go into student loan debt that you also consider your options related to working while you are in school. Working while you're in school is a really great option because it gives you some real life context that you can apply some of your education to. When you're working while you're in school, you can start to see the real world application of the things that you learn in the classroom. You can also start to take a head start on advancing yourself in your career. You can start to see which classes you actually need to take strategically to get you ahead. So not only will you be able to make the money that you need to pay for school, you'll also get all these great, realistic, hands-on, practical things out of working while you're in college. So before you consider the student loans, figure out if you can actually get a job, either part-time or even full-time, in your career. Now, I know that sometimes you're not able to get a job within your career field before you actually get your bachelor's degree. Sometimes that's just not realistic. For example, if you're in nursing, you might not be able to work as a registered nurse before you actually get your 4-year degree. But maybe you can work as a LPN or CNA, or you might have to do something completely out of your field, like working as a barista or working Grubhub or Instacart. And those things are totally fine. If you're interested in those type of part-time jobs, I have a link to a video that you can check out about ways that you can make extra money while you're in school. Another advantage of working in school is that sometimes some employers provide education incentives like tuition reimbursement, or they just pay it outright. And so that might be another reason to work while you're in school, because it's another payment option for your education. Now that you've decided that you want to take out some student loans to cover some of your college expenses, you'll want to think about your return on investment, also known as your ROI. So there are a few things that you need to factor in before you actually sign on the dotted line to take out those student loans to decide whether or not you're actually getting a good ROI by taking out these student loans at this time. So there are 3 things that you want to consider when it comes to the ROI for your student loans. The first thing to consider is the job outlook. You can simply find out what the job outlook is for the career that you want by just Googling. You can type in, for example, software engineer job outlook in a search engine, and you'll find a few results that will tell you what the job outlook is. So basically, the job outlook will give you an idea of how many jobs they expect in this industry over the next few years. And so you'll want to see that they are expecting within this industry for a lot of jobs to be opening up over the next few years. The reason why you want to know the job outlook is because you want to ensure that you're able to get a job post-graduation, and you won't have a lot of difficulty or a lot of competition to get a job. If the profession that you would like to enter has a lower job outlook, you'll have to consider things that you can do to increase your marketability and allow you to be at the top of the pack when it comes to jobs. Because you want to make sure that you're able to stand out, so when the few job opportunities do come available, that you're able to secure those jobs immediately rather than being at the low end of the pool and having to wait for kind of what's left. So job outlook is really important when it comes to determining the ROI for the job that you are taking a student loan to hopefully secure one day. The second thing that you want to consider when it comes to the ROI you expect from the job that you hope to get is the salary that will come attached to that job. So you want to have the highest salary possible, of course, when it comes to the ROI that you can expect. So you want to do something similar by Googling whatever your profession is and salary. So one thing that you need to be mindful of is looking at the years of experience that are needed related to that salary. Because as you continue to look, you'll see that a lot of jobs end up having like a 6-figure salary at some point. But that might be something that would take 10, maybe even 20 years to achieve. That's not something that you need to be looking at when it comes to the ROI for immediately after school. You want to make sure that you get a high ROI immediately after school. So make sure that you're looking at the salaries for entry-level positions within your career field. So when you type in software engineer salary, you'll want to look at the lower end of the range and see where that's starting at. And there are several different websites that will tell you what the salary range is for a position. Another thing that you can do to get a better idea of the salary expectation for a job that you hope to get once you graduate college is by looking for actual positions that you think you will be qualified for. So once again, make sure that you're looking at entry-level positions. So go on websites that have jobs listed, so different job boards like Indeed, LinkedIn. Some of the jobs will have a salary range listed for them. And so you'll want to look through that job description and see if you'll have the skill sets that they want upon graduation, and see if that is something that you think you'll be happy with getting paid. Once you've identified the starting salary range, you also kind of want to look at the mid-range as well and see what it will take for you to get to that mid-range salary. Will it take 5 years before you get there? Will it take 10 years before you get there? You'll want to look at that as well, because that'll give you an idea of how quickly you can raise your salary throughout the year. Now that you've figured out the entry salary for the profession that you would like to enter, I would suggest sketching out a sample budget with the salary that you expect to make based off of the research that you did, and figure out whether you'll be able to comfortably pay your student loan payments, be able to invest, and also save with the money that you earn from that profession. You also want to figure out whether you'll be able to make payments, large enough payments, so that you can pay off your debt within 5 years, so that you're not accruing a lot of interest and having to pay lots more money on the student loans. So you'll want to figure out a budget, and just a preliminary budget, to get an idea of, will I actually be making enough money to support the student loans that I'm taking out and be able to pay them off fast enough so I'm not spending too much extra money than I originally took out. So that's the approach that you want to take when it comes to looking at the salary versus the ROI on your student loans. So let's say once you've started at the assistant position, you want to see what other positions might be available for you after that. Is there an associate position? Is there a senior? Is there a director position available? And essentially what that is telling you is if there is job growth available. If there isn't any job growth, that also likely means there isn't any salary growth either. And you'll be stuck essentially after a certain period at one level. And so you also have to figure out, one, are you even going to be comfortable with that? Are you going to be okay with being stuck at maybe a director level and you can never get to be a VP or president level? So you'll have to think about that. But also, if there isn't much growth in titles, there likely won't be much growth in salary, and you have to figure out whether you're okay with that. So while you're looking at the salary ranges, you want to look at what's the max salary. So let's say the salary for your position, because there isn't much growth, maxed out at about $80,000. Are you okay with working in that position for the next 20 years at a max salary of $80,000? Is that okay for you? You have to decide whether that is okay for you. And also weigh that against the amount of money that you'll be taking in student loans. You don't want to be taking out $80,000 worth of student loans when the max salary you can ever get will be $80,000. You want to see that the salary that you could potentially get 10, 20 years from now is double, triple, quadruple. Once you've done the preliminary research on the ROI related to your student loans, you'll want to actually look at the terms of your student loans. Before some people sign on the dotted line, the only numbers that they look at are how much money they're taking out and when the money is going to hit their account. But all these other numbers and all these other factors really make a difference. And so not only do you want to look at how much money you're taking out, but you want to look at some of the origination fees, what your interest rate will be, and what some of your payment terms are going to be. So for example, there's always a loan origination amount. So that brings up the total amount of loan that you're actually taking out. So although you might hope to take out $10,000, your loan might charge you a certain amount of money for you to even have the loan to begin with. So you actually need to take out sometimes more than $10,000, although you only need $10,000 just to cover that origination fee. You also want to consider interest rates. Nowadays, interest rates are super low, and so you want to lock in the lowest interest rates possible. And if you're going into a field where you know that you can have some type of loan forgiveness or loan repayment done for you, you want to make sure that you actually are able to take advantage of those programs based off of the loan that you take. You don't want to take out a loan that has it written into the terms that you cannot have these programs pay on your behalf. So you want to make sure that you look over those things as well. Also, things like when you're accruing interest really make a difference in how much money you're going to have to pay overall. So it's really best if you can defer accruing interest until after you leave school by having interest deferment programs built into your loans. And also, some student loans require you to start paying while you're in school. And that kind of defeats the purpose sometimes for some people who technically can't afford it while they're going into school because they maybe can't work while they're in school. So you want to look at all those terms and make sure that those terms actually work well for you and what you're trying to achieve. Once again, you want to make sure that you're paying the least amount of money possible between the amount of money that you're taking out, the origination fees, and how much money you're going to be accruing through interest over the years. So you want to look through all those terms to make sure that you're making the best decisions for you. When you decide to take out a student loan, I would highly suggest that you take out student loans only for qualified education expenses. So if you haven't noticed yet, you can take out student loans to cover your living expenses while you're in school, because basically you are able and eligible to take out student loans to cover your entire cost of education or entire cost of attendance. And usually that number factors in other things like your housing, your transportation, and other personal expenses, in addition to what's called your qualified education expenses. Qualified education expenses typically are just your tuition, fees, and books. Those are the things that tend to fall under qualified education expenses. And I would highly suggest that those are the only things that you take out student loans for, because you tend to have a better feeling about the student loans that you take out when you are actually looking at your loan document 10 years from now and you're like, oh, I only took out student loans for my education, for my tuition, for my books, and I'm not paying 10 years later for the rent that I paid for back while I was a freshman in college. Because that's how I felt when 10 years after graduating from my master's program, looking at the amount of interest that accrued and realizing that I was paying now at this point like 50% more on my rent just because I took out a student loan back in 2009 to cover my rent while I was in my graduate program. You don't want to have those feelings of regret around your student loans, and those things tend to come up a lot when you start to think about how much money you're now paying in excess due to interest and inflation and all those things because you took out student loans just to cover living expenses. So if at all possible, I would just focus on taking out student loans for qualified education expenses and not for anything like housing or for transportation or personal expenses or anything like that. Because really, it's kind of the same thing as using your credit card to pay for deodorant, right? You don't want to pay 26% interest on deodorant when you could have paid no interest on your deodorant. And granted, your student loans don't have typically 26% interest, but you don't want to be paying 6%, 4% more on your rent over year after year after year because you decide to use your student loans to pay for your rent. And that's exactly how I felt, and I don't want you to feel that way, because essentially the only reason why I took out student loans was to cover living expenses, and the better alternative is to get a job. That's where the regret starts to come in for student loans, when you start to realize you're paying so much more for things like food and housing, and there really is no return on investment because the food and the housing is now gone and you aren't making any money off of those things and you're paying much more for it. So trust me. Only take out student loans for qualified education expenses if you can. When you take out your student loans, you want to have a debt payoff plan. And I'm going to give you 2 critical things that you need to have in your debt payoff plan so that you can get a jump start on creating the debt payoff plan for your student loans. So when it comes to your student loans, it is really important that you start to pay the interest that starts to accrue on your student loans while you are in school. So I talked about this before, that there are some student loans that accrue interest while you're in school and then some that do not. So if your student loans are subsidized, that means that they do not accrue interest while you're in school, and so you don't have to worry about this part of the plan. But if you do have any unsubsidized student loans, your student loans will start to accrue interest, and you want to start paying that now while you are in school. So you might be thinking like, I don't have any money to pay my interest while I'm in school. Realistically, it shouldn't be that much money. Hopefully it's less than $100 per month. At this point, I have $56,000 student loans, and on a monthly basis, I'm accruing about $70 to $80 worth of interest per month. So you shouldn't have to pay that much money on your interest on a monthly basis while you're in school. And so you might be wondering, like, why do I need to start paying them now? Like, isn't that the whole point of having the grace period and having the unsubsidized or the subsidized student loans so that I can pay this stuff all when I graduate? Yeah, well, that is one benefit of having these factors in your student loans. But the really important thing with paying your interest while you're in school is this thing called capitalized interest. And you want to avoid that at all costs. Most student loans have a term of about a 10-year payoff, and then some people just consider that they're going to pay their loans for the next 20, 30 years. They're just going to take however long they can to pay it. But the average payoff term is about 10 years. I am challenging you to pay off your student loans within 5 years, because it's going to save you so much money if you pay off your student loans quicker. The reason for that is that you are going to spend a lot less in interest. Some other things to consider with your debt payoff plan are programs that you can use to either subsidize how much money you're actually going to pay, or programs that will cancel your entire student loan balance after some years of service, whether in the public sector or within certain industries. There are tons of programs out there that you can utilize, and even finding an employer, like I said, who will pay for your student loans, in retrospect. That will be an awesome part of your debt payoff plan. So consider all of those things, but the two important things I would challenge you to do are to pay the interest on your student loans while you're in school, and then secondly, try to pay off your student loans within 5 years. One thing that's going to be critical when you take out your student loans and even when you enter your repayment period is budgeting. So if you need help with budgeting, I am here for you, and I have a video here that you can check out on how to budget so that you can get on track with your finances and make sure that everything works in your favor so you can live your best financial life while you're in college and after college, whether you decide to take out loans or not. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Make sure that you share it, and I hope that you subscribe so I can see you in the next one. Bye.